Okay, part two of chapter two, Wave Me Goodbye. I'll just read the last line again and then we'll get straight into it. Come on, little girl on the big suitcase. Up you get, someone shouted at me. I sat where I was, going, Mum, 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 inside my head. Shirley! My head jerked up. There she was, running wildly towards me, turning her ankles in her wedge shoes, a paper bag in one hand and a bottle in the other. Oh, my Lord, she gasped. The cafeteria was jam-packed. I had to barge to the front of the queue and I was practically lynched. But I wasn't having you going off hungry. Look, I've got you dandelion and burdock cordial. It's full of vitamins and ever so expensive. But I didn't want you drinking that fizzy pop. It's bad for you. The only sandwiches they had left were corned beef, and I know you're not over fond of it, but at least they'll fill a hole. I got you a Mars bar too, as a special treat, but mind you wipe round your mouth afterwards. You're ever such a mucky pup with chocolate. She went on, gabbling instructions as we lumbered onto the platform, Mum helping to haul the case. Come on, madam, get the kiddie on board. We're off in a tick, said a guard standing in one of the doorways. Where are those convent girls? Mum gasped. You're not sitting with that rabble. She pulled me onwards, right up towards the front of the train, and spotted a sea of purple through the window. Here, come on, Shirley, heave-ho, she said, pushing me and the suitcase up the steps. There was a nun in the corridor, guarding her girls. Your little girl can't sit with us. This is specially reserved. There isn't a seat to spare anyway, she said. She was obviously a lady, but she had a very neat moustache above her upper lip. I wondered if she actually shaved it into that shape. I'm sure there's plenty of room if your girls all budge up a bit, said Mum, pushing me right into the compartment. Yep, just as I thought, and my Shirley's only a tiddler. She's been brought up nicely, quite the little lady. You girls with the plaits, she can sit with you, can't she? I got shoved between them before they could object. I clutched my bottle and paper bag dolefully, while Mum tried to heave the suitcase onto the luggage rack. It defeated her. It'll have to stay on the floor, she said. Right, come here, Shirley. She clasped me to her and whispered in my ear, Be a good girl now, and don't take any notice of Charlie Chaplin with the moustache. We both giggled hysterically, and then gasped when the train gave a little jerk. Oh, Lordy, I'll have to make a dash for it, said Mum, and ran out of the carriage without even kissing me goodbye. I stared after her, thinking I should make a dash for it myself. I seized the suitcase, but it was so heavy I couldn't edge it past all the girls' knees. Watch out! You just bashed me with that suitcase, one of them protested. Sorry, I need to go, I said frantically. But I was stuck. The train gathered speed. I decided to abandon the suitcase, and Timmy Ted, and all my precious books. I barged past them all and flew to the door in the passageway, but the train was already going too fast. I undid the leather clasp, clawed at the window, got it open, and leaned out. I saw Mum far away down the platform, and I waved wildly. She waved back and blew me kisses while I yelled, Love you, Mum! Then someone hoiked me away from the window, shut it fast, and snapped it in place again. There now, don't want you falling out, you silly Billy. She was another Women's Voluntary Services lady, but she was younger than the others, with short curly hair and a smiley face. Hey there, I'm Miss Haverford, but you can call me Annie. What's your name? I'm Miss Smith, but you can call me Shirley, I said. I was simply copying her to be polite, but it made her chuckle. I jerked... Thanks, Shirley. Now where have you sprung from? I jerked my head at the carriage of convent girls. She raised her eyebrows. How come you're not in that purple get-up then? My mum said I had to wear my best jumper and my pleated skirt, I said truthfully. And very nice they look too. Well, better go back to your seat. There's a good girl, she said. I didn't have a seat. The two girls with plaits were sitting together again. Someone had put my sandwich in the corner, and the bottle had rolled under the seat. I had to bend right down and borrow for it while the girls giggled. I hoped my knickers weren't showing. They were an embarrassing shade of pink with a lace frill, not plain white like proper knickers. I knew I was blushing when I stood up again. The nun in the corner sighed at me. Here, you better come and sit with me, she said. I did my best to squash into the meagre space between her and a girl with gold-rimmed glasses and black hair in a long ponytail. She didn't say anything, but she gave me a little smile. She seemed to be the only friendly person in the carriage. The other girls all talked in swanky voices, laughing and joshing each other and making silly jokes. None of them seemed to have proper names. They were all Goofy and Munchkin and Snubby and Pinky. I thought they were ridiculous and wished Mum hadn't shoved me in with them. They clearly didn't think much of me either, surreptitiously pulling faces at me when the nun wasn't looking. Then they started kicking my case, Dad's special shiny case. First the two girls with plaits kicked. One was Goofy, though her teeth didn't stick out particularly, and the other small one was Munchkin. Then they all started joining in, except for the girl in glasses next to me. They weren't kicking hard, but their posh Stark-Right sandals were making dusty marks on the leather. I couldn't bear it. "Stop it! That's my dad's suitcase," I said sharply. They all giggled and Goofy kicked it again. "Stop it! That's my dad's suitcase," Munchkin said in a funny accent. I realised she was mimicking me. She thought I was common. The children at my school mocked me because they thought I talked posh. I couldn't win, but I could stop them kicking the suitcase. I watched the nun, and when she started delving in her own suitcase for something, my foot shot out and I kicked the Munchkin girl sharply on the ankle. "Ow, you beast!" "Sister Josephine, that girl just kicked me," she screamed. The nun frowned. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. It's just so crowded in here. I was trying to get up because I need the toilet, and my foot just went the wrong way," I gabbled. Charlie Chaplin was famous for his cane, and this nun could have one tucked up her long black sleeves for all I knew. The girls were giggling again, even the Munchkin one I'd kicked. "She needs the toilet," she gasped. "Oh, little totty toilet," said Goofy, and they all shrieked again. "Girls, stop this vulgar nonsense," said Charlie Chaplin. "She's the one that said it, Sister Josephine," said Munchkin. "That will be enough, Monica," she said firmly. She looked at me. "You'd better go and find the WUC then." She whispered the weird word as if it was very bad. WC? I'd never heard a toilet called that before, but it was clearly what she meant. That came into my head. I didn't really need to go. I just made that up. But I stood up and squeezed past my suitcase. Monica gave me a vicious poke as I went, but Sister Charlie Chaplin was watching. "Monica, I saw that. How dare you be so unkind? What would Jesus say?" she snapped. I didn't know what Jesus would say, but I said, "Hooray!" The short-haired smiley woman was still guarding the door in the corridor. "Hello, Shirley. I hope you haven't come to fling yourself out of the window again," she said cheerily. I beamed at her. "Please, Miss, Annie, do you know where the double something is?" "Double what?" "I forget what she called it. That nun lady in there. I want the toilet." I think she might have called it the W.C. W.C, short for water closet? Very refined people, nuns. The toilets are at either end of the train, but the one at the front is already out of order. Some kid's been sick in it. You'll have to shovel your way right to the back. They've packed so many kids on this train that some of them are sitting on their suitcase in the corridor. Mind how you go. It was a long and precarious trek down the train. There were children spilling out into the corridor. The younger kids from Paradise Road were singing 10 Green Bottles, holding up their hands and counting it on their fingers. They looked as if they were having far more fun than the St. Agatha's lot. There were some older boys larking about further up, riding their cases and pretending to be cowboys. "Hey, there's an old moo cow. Let's lasso her," Kevin shouted. He was in my class, a gangly boy with jug ears who was always in trouble. I glared at him. He whirled his school tie at me. I dodged, and the end of his tie flicked me hard. "Ow, my eye, my eye," I said, holding my head. It hadn't hurt my eye. It had caught my eyebrow, but it sounded more dramatic. "Oh, Kev, what you done? You've only gone and blinded her." "I didn't do nothing. I was just being Roy Rogers. I left them, accusing and protesting, and pushed my way onwards until I got to a queue of children waiting for the toilet. It wasn't a happy queue. One little boy had already wet himself. The front of his trousers was soaking. Even his socks were soggy. His big sister was giving him a telling off, fussing like an old biddy, though she was only about 6 herself. Another girl had been sick, and it had dribbled down her blouse. She was plucking at it anxiously, her face screwed up. She was in my class too, a girl called Mary. When I stood behind her, she started to wail. "I don't know what to do," she said. "That lady back there said I should go to the toilet, but how will that help? It's all down my best blouse, and Mum will wallop me." "Your mum's not here though, is she? So she can't wallop you," I said. My voice wobbled as I took in the fact that my mum wasn't here either. The train jerked and I very nearly fell against the poor girl. I backed away quickly because she smelled. "You can take your blouse off in the toilet and dab the stained bits with water. It won't matter if it's a bit damp after. At least it will be clean," I said. "Dab it with water? What, from the toilet?" she asked, horrified. "No, you banana. There'll be a basin, won't there? And soap so you can wash your hands. So you can wash your blouse. Here, I'll come in with you and help if you like," I said. It made me feel a bit better, looking after her. I'd always quite liked Mary, though she was in Marilyn Henderson's gang. I went into the cubicle with her and got her blouse off and rinsed it under the tap. There wasn't any soap, but I made a reasonable job of it. It still smelled faintly, but she'd just have to put up with that. We took turns using the toilet, turning our backs on each other politely, and then washed our hands and shook them dry, spraying each other and giggling. She was much nicer than those stuck-up convent girls. I wished I was sitting with her. Maybe we could make friends, and Marilyn Henderson would just have to lump it. I could lend her some of my books, even ballet shoes. We walked back down the corridor together. I remembered to clutch my head and whimper when we passed the cowboys. "I'm telling," I said, just to torture them. I wasn't that fussed about being flicked in the face, but I hated Kevin calling me an old moo cow. I was about to explain all this to Mary, but she suddenly darted back into her own carriage. Marilyn Henderson greeted her warmly and sat down and shared a drink with her. Mary didn't even turn her head to say goodbye, or thank me. I trailed back to the carriage with Charlie Chaplin and the purple pupils. And that is the end of chapter 2. So I hope you enjoyed that. And as I said, chapter 3 will be up really, really soon. Alright, bye guys.